My husband was transferred overseas shortly after we got married. Even though I was expecting a new addition to our family, I was left behind. After 9 months had passed, I felt a sharp pain in my abdomen. I barely managed to call an ambulance, but I lost consciousness right there. When I woke up, I found myself lying on a hospital bed. I could see doctors and nurses bustling around me. However, I didn't feel anyone's presence close by. Eventually, one of the doctors noticed I was awake and quietly came over to talk about my condition.
Please stay calm and listen. To be honest, it's a critical situation. So, we're going to proceed with an emergency C-section. Is that all right?
With no real choice in the matter, I reluctantly agreed. Regardless of my own situation, nothing could happen to the baby inside me. And so, I was taken to the operating room. The next day, my husband, who had returned temporarily, rushed into my hospital room. A new member of our family was beside me.
Emily.
The way he rushed over seemed somewhat exaggerated. Maybe it looked that way because I was already feeling that way about him.
You did great. I got a gift. It's for celebrating our new family member.
When I saw the present he handed me, everything I felt for Tom went cold. The anger, the sadness, and even the love I still had left, everything disappeared. Tom.
What?
I can't do this anymore. Please, let's end it.
Emily, I have never met a woman as hardworking and responsible as you. I always thought you were the most amazing person. So.
Tom was a business partner of the company I work for, and we began dating after he asked me out many times. Now, here we are.
So please, will you marry me?
He proposed to me. We had been dating for a few years at that point. Supporting Tom, who worked at a major company, had never felt like a burden during our relationship. He was someone I wanted to follow. That's how I felt. Yes, I'd love to. I agreed without a moment's hesitation.
Oh, thank goodness. Thank you.
Both of us were busy with work, making it hard to find time together, but we respected each other and never forgot to show appreciation, which made our days happy. It was truly a life you could call smooth sailing. One day, Tom stopped me with a serious look on his face.
I need to talk to you. I want you to stay at home, Emily. It might be just a foolish sense of pride, but I want to make you happy with my own strength.
I was confused as he suddenly asked me that. Becoming a stay-at-home wife would mean abandoning the career I had built, even if only temporarily. I was already perfectly happy with our life as it was. But, if the man I chose said it, maybe respecting his wishes was part of my role too. With that thought, I felt I could do it. All right. I will continue to support you. And so, a completely new chapter of my life began. Sometime after I transitioned to being a stay-at-home wife, Tom came home looking absolutely overjoyed. Seeing him like that, I couldn't help but ask. What's going on? Something good must have happened.
Yeah, it's been decided. I'm getting transferred overseas.
I couldn't accept that news with happiness. After all, I had already been cut off from that path, so of course, I couldn't feel overjoyed. I didn't bear resentment or envy, but I definitely didn't feel like saying congratulations either. No, I didn't want to say it. Still, I told myself, you chose to be a homemaker, even if only once, and somehow managed to squeeze out a congratulations. Tom, whether he knew how I felt or not, hugged me tightly.
Thank you.
That warmth didn't melt everything away, but seeing him so giddy, like a kid with a new toy, made me feel a little affection for him. However, what would happen to me? Our home was newly built, and it wouldn't make sense to leave it, especially when I had no idea how many years it might be. That meant I'd be living alone here, right? This question crossed my mind. What should I do?
Oh, since the house is brand new, could you stay back for me?
So that's how it was going to be. In that case, why did I need to quit my job? Why did I have to give up my career? One frustration after another kept coming up. If I stopped thinking about it now, it would only mean postponing the problem. But would voicing it solve anything? I see. In the end, I had no choice but to face these realities without saying a word. And Tom left for overseas, leaving me behind. A few weeks later, an unexpected truth was revealed. I found out I was pregnant. I was happy, but I also felt a great deal of anxiety about raising a child alone. Regardless of whether I stayed home or not, at this point, the option to continue my career had likely disappeared anyway. In any case, I hurriedly tried to call Tom to tell him the news, but I couldn't get through at all. After all, it was his first time being assigned overseas. He was probably busy and overwhelmed with all the unfamiliar things. Feeling like I was about to be crushed by anxiety, I had no choice but to send a message. His response came the next morning, based on my local time. In his message, he seemed genuinely happy too, but there was no apology for missing my call, nor any mention of coming back to the US for the birth. Once again, a deep anxiety welled up in my chest. Why did I have to be alone at a time like this? The vague unease gradually took on a more specific form, turning into a feeling of loneliness. No matter how much time passed, he never made a single phone call. Our communication remained limited to messages. To make matters worse, as the baby in my belly grew, my physical health also started to deteriorate. Whether it was due to my mental state, I wasn't sure of the cause. Anyway, I felt incredibly lonely. Even after clearly telling him how I felt and asking him to come back, Tom adamantly refused, using work as his reason. I could understand his feelings too. Without work, he couldn't support us, and I knew very well the joy of doing work you're passionate about. On the other hand, leaving behind a pregnant wife who wasn't feeling well, without even making a single phone call, made me feel suspicious. My emotions swung back and forth between these two sides. After a while, despite knowing it wasn't good for my mental health, I decided to check Tom's social media to find out what was going on with him. After all, there was no other way for me to know anything about his current life. When I looked, I found that, despite never connecting with me on the phone and even our messages becoming less frequent, his social media posts were increasing day by day. A conversation I'd had with a friend a few days earlier began to replay in my mind.
You should check it properly, at least once.
Nina, who worked with me at my previous job and had always been a reliable mentor, was now working as Tom's boss, in a strange twist of fate. She had given me some advice. But how?
You might not like the idea of snooping, but the quickest way is to check social media. If he's posting, you'll get a pretty good idea of what kind of life he's living over there.
I definitely wasn't keen on it. But I knew that I couldn't afford to be picky about my feelings at this point. Nina had been right. Not only that, but there were also several photos with a local woman, as if to flaunt it. I became certain Tom no longer cared about me. Fortunately, the family and friends around me were taking great care of me. But it still hurt, regardless. The thought that the person I had decided to entrust my life to might be betraying me was enough to drive me crazy. And the more I thought about it, the worse my physical health got. Everything was a vicious cycle. Regardless of my feelings, the due date was steadily approaching. I wondered if Tom would come back when it was time to give birth. Honestly, I didn't have much hope anymore. Besides, if he had gotten close to someone else over there, I wouldn't be happy in the slightest if he came back. I felt more and more like I was being cornered. My health kept getting worse, with no signs of recovery.
If this continues, we may have to perform an emergency C-section. Please discuss this thoroughly with your family.
All right. I knew the doctor meant nothing by those words, but to me, they pierced my heart deeply. However, I couldn't stay silent any longer. Still, I reached out to Tom first. Maybe, deep down, a part of me was still hoping for something. They said I might need an emergency C-section if this keeps up. I sent the message. I wondered what time it was over there. Next, I sent the same message to Nina. She called me right away. The vibrating phone felt incredibly reassuring. Hello?
Hey, Emily, are you all right?
Not much has changed. I still don't feel well. Oh, by the way, I checked his social media.
Oh, and?
It's bad. I'm pretty sure he's just having fun over there. I told her everything as it was.
Ugh, that's almost definitely a bad sign.
I think so too. I mean, the lack of responses is strange enough.
Yeah, if he really cared, he'd reply right away. Though, I guess the time difference could be part of it.
Right then, I got a notification that I'd received a message. Oh, it's from Tom. I put my phone on speaker, checked the message, and read it aloud for Nina. I'm really sorry. Things are wrapping up here. At the very least, I'm praying that you and the baby will be safe. That's what he said. After I finished reading, I sighed. Almost at the same time, I thought I heard a sigh from the speaker too. Even at this point, he didn't seem to plan on being there for the birth.
Maybe this is the end.
It might be. My shoulders slumped. My trust in Tom was shattered. A few days later, I was struck by a sharp pain in my abdomen while at home. The pain felt like my swollen belly was about to burst. I regretted not returning to my parents' house, but it was too late now. Unable to bear the pain, which made it almost impossible for me to walk, I somehow managed to call an ambulance. If only someone were here with me at a time like this. I couldn't help but think that. When the paramedics arrived a few minutes later, I lost consciousness from the intense pain and relief. When I woke up, I found myself lying on a hospital bed. I could see doctors and nurses moving around busily. But I didn't feel anyone's presence nearby. Of course, this is how it ends up, I thought in my still foggy mind. Eventually, one of the doctors noticed I was awake and quietly came over to explain my condition.
Please stay calm and listen. To be honest, it's a critical situation. So we're going to proceed with an emergency C-section. Is that all right?
It didn't seem like I had any choice, so I reluctantly agreed. No matter what happened to me, nothing must happen to the baby. And so, I was taken to the operating room. When I woke up again, I saw my parents and Nina there. It seemed the hospital had contacted them.
Oh, finally, you're awake. How are you feeling?
How about the baby?
They said the baby was born safely. You can relax now.
Thank goodness.
You did great. You're already a wonderful mom.
No, it's all thanks to the doctors. There was a brief moment of peace. There was no need to worry about anyone. But it truly was just a brief moment.
So, where's Tom? I haven't seen him around.
I had explained the situation to my mother, but I hadn't told my father. At that time, I didn't want to make a big deal out of it myself. But I knew that once my father found out, things wouldn't stay that way. It was obvious he'd be furious and confront Tom. Apparently, my mother thought the same. She apologized first and then explained everything to my father. Just as expected, my father stormed off in anger. He probably went to smoke a cigarette or something. My mother followed him to calm him down. That left just me and Nina in the hospital room.
You're well loved, aren't you?
I think so.
So, any word from Tom?
When she said that, I finally remembered. I asked Nina to get my bag and looked for the phone that should be inside. When I turned on the screen, there was one message.
I finally finished work. I'll be there tomorrow.
Even now, it seemed work was his top priority. There wasn't a single word for me. At this point, I almost found it refreshing.
Honestly.
Nina looked like she wanted to say more, but she just sighed and said nothing. The next day, Tom, who had temporarily returned, rushed into the hospital room. Our new family member was beside me. I hadn't been expecting much from him, but at the beginning, we had talked about naming the baby together, so the baby still didn't have a name.
Emily.
The way he rushed over seemed somewhat exaggerated. Maybe it looked that way because I was already feeling that way about him.
You did great. Oh, I have a gift. I thought it'd be nice to celebrate our new family.
Somehow, his tone seemed mechanical and emotionless. Anyway, the gift he pulled out was related to his new project, which had nothing to do with me or the baby. It was a sign of its success. Just as I thought yesterday, family was clearly secondary to him. Work was always number one. If we weren't married and didn't have a child, it wouldn't be a bad way to live. I'd even want to live like that myself. But the situation was different. When I realized what new family meant to him, all my feelings for Tom vanished. The anger, the sadness, and even the faint love I had left disappeared. Tom.
What?
I can't do this anymore. I want a divorce.
What? I've worked so hard.
Who did you work so hard for? Yourself, right? You never once considered me. I can't take it anymore. And that wasn't all. Plus, you cheated on me, didn't you? You posted all those photos on social media. Did you really think I wouldn't see them? Then Tom offered a shocking excuse.
I was struggling too, being alone overseas. I needed someone to rely on. That's how I managed to stay focused on work.
So what? Just because I was lonely here in the US, I should be okay with you cheating? I was lonely, I was struggling, and I tried to reach out to you so many times. But you rejected me every single time. I continued. And building a house is no excuse to leave me behind. I can't understand anything you've done. Just let's get divorced. After I was discharged from the hospital, I pursued legal action for infidelity and demanded compensation through a lawyer. Ironically, that was when Tom started bombarding me with messages. I couldn't help but think, if only he'd kept in touch this diligently from the start, things might have turned out differently.
Wait, Emily. Are you serious?
I told you. If you can't even properly take care of your own wife, how can I trust you with a child too?
So, what did I do wrong?
He didn't understand the essence of the issue. He didn't understand the point I was trying to make. I'm saying this because you did nothing. Did you ever do anything for me? Not even a single phone call.
I was thinking of you and the baby.
It seemed he genuinely believed his actions were right. Otherwise, he wouldn't be saying something like this. In fact, he hadn't apologized even once. As a result, I was able to proceed in a way that was largely favorable to me, including the division of assets after the divorce. Additionally, I gained full custody of our child, leading to an outcome I could mostly be satisfied with. The only thing that still didn't sit right with me was the fact that Tom had betrayed me, although there's no point in regretting it. That was the one thing that still pricked my heart like a small needle. However, Tom also paid a heavy price for what happened this time.
I took care of things on my end. There's no way I'd let him get away with it.
Thank you. I'm sorry for causing you so much trouble.
It's all right. I don't care about some big company project or whatever. My old friends are more important to me. Besides, there are other people who can handle it.
All of Tom's infidelity had been reported to his direct superior, Nina, through me. Nina, disapproving of his behavior, used her authority to remove Tom from that big project, and he no longer needed to return overseas. Still, if you asked whether there was a place for him here in the US, the answer, unfortunately, wasn't so simple. Rumors started circulating around Tom, who had been removed from the major project, and it seemed he was now feeling quite out of place even at work. So, what's Tom doing now?
At the company, there's all sorts of talk. I tried to stop it, but if I get too involved, it could make things worse.
That's for the best. He brought it on himself. From his perspective, those rumors had grown far beyond the truth, but this was something of his own making.
Well, in the end, it looks like he's planning to quit. I guess he can't handle the environment anymore.
At this point, I almost felt a bit sorry for him, but everything was just the consequence of his actions. He lost the job he loved, and even though he never paid much attention to it, he also lost his family. Both professionally and personally, he must be at rock bottom now. It's too late for regrets now. He had plenty of chances.
Emily, please, forgive me.
For a while after that, Tom kept calling me and even showed up at my house, practically begging. But I wasn't the kind of person who would be swayed by that. The time when that would have worked had long passed. I've said this many times already. It's too late. For everything. Besides, I haven't even heard a single apology from you yet. Even setting aside how you abandoned me, trying to justify cheating is just unbelievable.
Okay, I'm sorry. Look, I really mean it.
He finally apologized after I called him out. But even that seemed like nothing more than a performance to me. And I was sure it was. The person I had trusted, even for a moment, to rely on and entrust my life to, now looked so utterly pathetic. Do you really think apologizing after everything is over will make it all right? If you keep following me around, I'm going to call the police. Since then, Tom completely disappeared, and all communication from him ceased. After the chaos settled down, I was finally able to name my newborn son. Thomas Jr. That's his name. Not having a father might cause some inconveniences, worries, or burdens for this child. But I swore firmly that I would protect him no matter what. Fortunately, I have a lot of people around me who are here to support me. My parents, other relatives, and Nina are all among them. My parents absolutely adore Thomas Jr., and they come to my house almost every week to help out in any way they can. Even my father, who was so furious back then, has completely become a doting grandfather, with all his old sternness seemingly gone. As for my mother, she watches over him with the same loving expression she's always had. That aside, Thomas Jr. especially seems to be fond of Nina. Sometimes I think he might even be more attached to her than to my parents.
It makes me so happy to be adored by such a cute kid.
Nina smiled widely. And then, in the next moment, she looked at me seriously, staring right into my eyes.
Hey, why don't we work together again?
Her sudden words made me doubt my ears. Wait, what do you mean all of a sudden?
Well, I'm still planning it, but I'm thinking about starting my own company. So I was wondering if you'd want to work there with me.
It was just like Nina to come up with something like that. She's the kind of person who's always looking for something new. I'm sure she's already built up a decent record at her current job.
Oh, of course, I'm not saying right now. Maybe after Thomas Jr. gets a little older. You'll have to raise him on your own from now on, right? Even though you got some compensation, it won't last forever.
She paused for a moment and then continued.
Besides, don't you feel like you haven't worked enough yet?
She hit the nail on the head. Now that I was free, I wanted to work again eventually.
We've known each other for a long time, and I'll make sure you get a good position. So, what do you think? Not a bad offer, right?
It was indeed an offer I couldn't have wished for more. I answered immediately. I'd love to. I never dreamed I'd get to work with you again.
That's a good answer. I feel better knowing you're on board. Finding someone from scratch is tough.
Nina's serious gaze was replaced by a bright, cheerful smile.
But for now, stay by your son's side. Like I said earlier, this isn't something that'll happen right away. Once we get everything prepared, it'll probably take a few years. By then, Thomas Jr. will have grown a lot.
I feel like I'm always relying on you.
Not at all. We help each other, right?
Then, I'll have to work hard to repay you for all you've done so far.
Oh, I haven't seen you smile like that in a while.
I realized it myself when she said it. I wondered when was the last time I had smiled. This past year had been full of hardships, and I had completely forgotten how to smile.
Well, that's how it is. Looking forward to working with you, Emily.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it too. And so, a few years passed with the help of many people. I decided to sell the new house, which I had no special attachment to, and moved back in with my parents with the money from the sale. My parents were happy to accept my decision. Next year, Thomas Jr. will start elementary school. One day, just as we got back from shopping, the phone rang as if on cue. It was Nina.
Hey, how are you? Are you free right now?
Yes, I'm free. What's up?
We're starting the company.
Oh, you're finally doing it.
Yep. So, I wanted to schedule a meeting with you and thought I'd reach out. When are you available?
I opened my planner for the first time in a while. Seeing the blank pages that would soon be filled made it all feel real, and I felt so happy. I'm available anytime.
All right, then let's do it next Monday. I'll come over to your place, so just relax.
Got it. I'll be waiting. I felt my heart flutter with excitement for the new future that was about to begin. Just thinking about being able to work again thrilled me, and working with Nina felt like a dream.
You look happy, Mom.
Yeah.
I'm very happy. Smiling, I patted Thomas Jr.'s head, and he smiled back at me, his face beaming. I promised myself that I would raise Thomas Jr. with my own strength. That evening, I swore that